Actually, it was this position, where Caruana found a very nice idea to try and save the game. We thought White was in trouble, but after bishop takes pawn in this position, White's bishop taking this pawn, Black's knight jumping forward, the rook stepping forward, and now attacked. It was Caruana who found the only move to save the game, and it's not an obvious one. White's rook is attacked. You cannot capture this bishop because there's a pin along this line, and Caruana, if realizing the best form of defense is counterattack, and now jumping forward with his bishop, attacking Black's rook, and we saw some trades, and eventually, despite the fact that Black's was attacking the White king, Black did have these checkmating ideas. Caruana did find a way to save the game. Using all of his calculation skills, importantly, running to this side of the board, he did manage to defend against Firouzja's attack.
All right, half a point for both of these players. We're going to head straight into the finish of Shakhriyar's blunder from Mamedyarov right before we came into this game. What happened here? Because he was winning at one point.
Yeah, he was winning at one point, and actually this is just where it turned around. So Black's king has just stepped forward out into the open. Black's king about to go on a bit of a walk here, bit of an adventure, and this is where Mamedyarov made a very natural mistake. But he did blunder. He brought his bishop forward one square, trying to relocate the bishop to deliver check to the Black king, to target that Black king. But he missed that after this move, Black can just take a pawn. And once White's pawn disappears, that pride and joy of the White position, suddenly the Black king stepped forward. And this is around where we joined it. Black's king was super safe in the middle of the board. Instead, in this position, he should have used his pawn. He should have, for example, stepped forward, harry the h-pawn, pushing it forward. And now there's nothing to do for Black apart from retreat. The Black king has to run away like the Teletubbies would, because now if rook takes pawn, the difference is now there is a deadly check on the square and the rook will deliver the killing blow. Black's king now would be doomed. So Mamedyarov so close to targeting, to trapping that Black king, but he didn't quite find the right way. Yeah, I mean, I think the key moment, the reason Nepomniachtchi was shaking his head was because of his big blunder. We did see later on that Magnus Carlsen had chances. He let them slip. He didn't quite find a way to convert his advantage. But this position, Nepomniachtchi just self-destructed in one move. Black is actually a pawn up right now, and we expected here in the studio for Black's rook just to step forward one square, defending this pawn, defending the other pawn in the center. Maybe Black can just shuffle his king across to safety later on. If anyone's better, it's probably Nepomniachtchi, but he did crack under the tension. He did rush to exchange queens. This is a mistake for two reasons. One, Magnus is an endgame in the expert in the endgame, sorry, once the queens disappear from the board. And I don't think that Nepomniachtchi would be too happy, even after a move like queen takes queen. But more importantly, Nepomniachtchi did miss this check. Looking for checks and captures would have avoided this blunder. And as we saw, he had to give up the exchange now. He had to give up a rook for knight, because if knight takes knight, there was this deadly check, and the Black queen disappears next move. And actually, in this position, we were talking about Nepomniachtchi maybe even thinking of throwing in the towel, of resigning the game, but he did fight on, and that was thanks to activating his king, and next move, as we saw, activating these two pawns. Nepomniachtchi saving the game with very, very active, aggressive play in the endgame, and that's what you need to do. You can't just sit still when you're material down. And he did set traps for Magnus. Magnus unable to avoid those drawing hurdles in the end. So many fireworks, so many high points, highlights in this game. It's hard to pick a favourite, but this one, it has to be White going on a king walk. Aronian playing for the win, trying to deliver checkmate, trying to trap the White king on this square, and now Caruana playing for the win by advancing the White king. I do think the key move to hold the draw was Black actually giving up his bishop after all these checks, giving up the bishop, and eventually the White king shouldn't be able to escape. There were many twists and turns after this, but in the end, Aronian held firm. He found the right moves and made the draw. At this point, Giri was one pawn up, but he found an ingenious way to initiate a series of exchanges. And it was this move. It doesn't look possible. It looks like Black's knight is under attack, but Giri finding or spotting the fact that he can just push his pawn. And we did see that series of exchanges happen now. Lots of pieces on the board, but that all got clarified. White did capture the Black knight, going one piece up. Black now sacrificed his queen for a rook. And we did see that this did release the blockade of this pawn, and after Black did make a new queen, we saw even more exchanges. Black capturing a pawn here, the queen's disappearing from the board, White capturing a queen, Black capturing a queen, and at the very end we do a quick count. Black is one pawn up, and this pawn in the end did become a new queen. it did win the game for Anish Giri. It was very balanced throughout, but Giri was slowly starting to put the pressure on. And eventually, in this bishop versus knight endgame, Jovanka called it in advance. She spotted the winning move, and this was a very small opportunity for Giri. He actually ended up taking this pawn, but once the black knight activated itself, there was just nothing to be done. The game was a draw. Black held the fortress purely because White's king was never able to enter the action. That's why he should have stepped forward now. This was the chance. Go active with the king. And if Black does the same thing, if he brings the knight to the center, suddenly the White king is headed towards this pawn. And if that pawn drops, White has a corner pawn. Knights are terrible against these side flank pawns. White would be odds on to win this game. This pawn also promotes on a dark square, which would be covered later on by White's bishop. And actually, I don't think there's any way to stop this White king from entering the position. What can Black do? If Black steps back, or if Black steps across, now you take with the bishop. And in this endgame, I think you can, well, maybe you can even take this knight, but if you want to keep things simple, you bring your king to the other flank. And Black won't be able to stop you going right or left. He can only block you from one side. And this king move, marching the king up the board, should have won the game for Anish Giri.